Mrs. Bovary finished her call and left. Nicole suddenly had a little regret in her heart. Previously, Mark used his secret herbal formula to develop a few bottles of fairy toner for her to try. He said that he wanted her company to use this fairy toner to create a cosmetic brand, but Nicole rejected the idea because she did not believe in Mark at all. But now, her employees all said that the fairy toner had an amazing effect. Also, Mrs. Bovary, the deputy mayor's wife, was in a hurry to cooperate with Mark. Could it be that she, Nicole, had really misjudged her husband and his product? If Mark's secret herbal formula was really amazing, then the fairy toner that was developed would definitely become a bestseller. There would be huge profits from it. It might even save Nicole's company. But if Mark gave this opportunity to Mrs. Bovary and chose to work with other companies, she, Nicole, would miss what might be a golden opportunity. Nicole hesitated, wondering if she should call Mark and talk to him about it, but she had just chased him away. Just as Nicole was hesitating, her phone rang. It was her younger sister, Kelly. Nicole picked up immediately. "Hey, Kelly, what's up?" Kelly sounded excited.
Nicole, Mark used his secret formula to develop the fairy toner. It's incredible. It's more useful than any cosmetics on the market. It's simply amazing. He is preparing to use it to develop a cosmetics brand to sell through your company. Did he tell you about this?
Well, yes, he did. Nicole hedged.
Then you agree? Sis, Mark did it all for you. Let me tell you, once your company obtains the rights to sell this fairy toner, then you can push it to the market. It'll sell like hotcakes. I know it will. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Nicole. You must seize it.
Nicole cleared her throat awkwardly. Is that so? You think that this is a great opportunity? Kelly almost spluttered in her enthusiasm.
Of course. Do you even need to ask? Nicole, I'll say it again. You must seize this opportunity.
Nicole felt even worse now. After hesitating for a moment, she decided to tell the truth to her sister. Kelly, Mark did tell me about his plan, but I rejected it. Kelly did splutter this time. When she found her voice again, she said,
What? You actually rejected him? Sis, is there something wrong with your brain? You actually rejected such a fantastic opportunity? Listen to me. I heard that Marcy Green from the Green family is planning to work with Mark on this. If he and Miss Green work together, well, let's just say it won't be good for you or your business.
Nicole said, Is that so? It's actually that popular? The wife of the deputy mayor, Mrs. Bovary, wants to work with Mark. I didn't know that Marcy Green also wants to work with him.
Of course she does, Kelly said, as if her sister was stupid. Everyone who's tried it has personally verified the effects of the fairy toner developed by Mark's secret herbal formula. Of course, there are many companies now fighting to work Mark, so you have to hurry up, Nicole. Hurry up and call Mark. Tell him you'll do it. Tell him not to cooperate with other companies.
Nicole wasn't sure what to say. Kelly, are you really sure that the fairy toner's effect is really that good? Kelly huffed.
Good grief, Nicole. You're actually still suspicious? I've personally tested that fairy toner and can vouch for it 100%. If you don't believe me, why don't you give it a try yourself?
Kelly paused, and the noise of people could be heard in the background.
All right, sis, I have to get to class. Hurry up and call Mark. Don't let him give this opportunity to anyone else.
After Kelly finished speaking, she hung up the phone. Nicole suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. Could it be that she had really underestimated Mark? She looked up and found that her employees were still gathered at the office door, watching her. Nicole said, Do you still have the fairy toner that I gave you? They all nodded, and one said, Yes, Nicole. You gave us each a bottle. I used it a few times and shared a little with my relatives and friends, but I still have half a bottle left. Nicole said. Good. Bring the remaining fairy toner to me, please. I'd like to give it a try. Yes, Nicole. I'll go and get it right away. Very quickly, the female employee brought the remaining fairy toner to Nicole's office. Nicole dismissed her employees then and closed her office door. Then she washed her face in the office bathroom and applied the fairy toner. In a short time, a miracle happened. In less than half an hour, her skin became blemish-free. It was also incredibly soft. It was only at this moment that Nicole was completely sure. This fairy toner was indeed miraculous. Mark hadn't lied. Nicole immediately felt anxious. How could such a magical thing be given to someone else? No, I have to quickly give Mark a call. I cannot let him sell the cosmetics secret recipe to Mrs. Bovary or that Miss Green, she thought to herself. Nicole quickly took out her phone, but just as she was about to call Mark, she hesitated. I just kicked Mark out, and when I rejected him, I was so tough. I said that his fairy toner had not been tested and that a collaboration was impossible. Now I'm about to call him and do a complete 180. Will Mark agree? Nicole thought about it and sighed. She did not care anymore. She had to try. If she was too late, perhaps that good-for-nothing really would cooperate with other companies with the fairy toner, leaving her company out in the cold. Thinking about this, Nicole made up her mind and pressed Mark's number. The phone was quickly picked up.
Nicole, why are you calling me? Did you miss me? Mark said.
Nicole coughed lightly and asked, What are you doing now?
Nothing. I was just talking on the phone, Mark said.
Oh, talking to who? Nicole didn't want to sound curious, but she couldn't help it.
Mrs. Bovary. You remember that it was Mrs. Bovary who caused trouble at your company before. She just called me and said she wanted to buy my secret herbal formula at a high price,
Mark said. And did you agree? Nicole asked in a hurry.
No, Mark said. How could I sell such a precious secret herbal formula so easily? But she said she could get me a deal where they would give me dividends every year. I think I should consider it,
Nicole said. So you have decided to work with Mrs. Bovary?
Not really, Mark replied. I was just thinking about it. Actually, I asked Marcy Green to find a company to develop and sell the fairy toner. It should be very popular.
What? So you have already collaborated with Marcy? Nicole was a little angry. Mark kept saying that he wanted her company to sell and introduce his fairy toner, but he had given this opportunity to Marcy very quickly. What is your relationship with Marcy? That night at midnight when you received her call, you rushed out. It seems that you are more than a little interested in Marcy's affairs. Nicole's words unknowingly carried a bitter tone. Mark was a little happy.
You aren't jealous, are you, Nicole?
Why should I be jealous? Nicole asked. What does this have to do with me? I'm just asking. Since you gave Marcy the opportunity to cooperate, there's nothing more to say. I'm hanging up.
Wait a minute, don't hang up. I didn't give this opportunity to Marcy. I just wanted her to find a company to develop and sell the fairy toner to see how effective it is. Nicole, if you were willing, this opportunity can be yours at any time. This fairy toner was originally developed for you,
Mark said. Whatever, forget it, I don't care. You should cooperate with your Marcy. After Nicole finished speaking, she suddenly hung up. After hanging up the phone, Nicole said angrily to herself, Looks like my husband's relationship with Marcy is more complex than it should be. I really didn't know he had such a crafty plot. It really pisses me off. But immediately, Nicole regretted her thoughts. She muttered to herself, Why am I angry? I don't care about that useless person or who he has dealings with. But I really seem to be jealous. That's impossible. I won't be jealous. My marriage to that good-for-nothing is just a marriage in name, so how could I possibly be jealous? Forget it, Nicole. Don't think about it anymore. After making the arrangements for the fairy toner, Mark began to take care of matters in Dragon Bay. After Mark had dealt with the issue of the transparent coffin, Dragon Bay was no longer a dangerous place. It had already returned to normal. Now, Mark planned to develop it and build a high-end residential area. Then he would use his skills from the Profound Group and gather positive spirit energy in this high-end residential area. Then the air here would be fresher and cleaner than in other places. It would also be more beneficial to the human body. Dragon Bay was located in the center of the city, which was relatively prosperous. So Mark believed that his development would become the most sought-after residential area in the city. The houses here would definitely be very popular after they were built. However, he had no idea or interest in managing residential properties. Nicole is right. He did not know much about doing business of any kind. He also had many other things to do and didn't have time to manage the development at Dragon Bay by himself. Mark thought about it and felt that there was another suitable candidate. It was a friend of his, Rick Ford. He had known Rick since Mark married Nicole 5 years ago. They had a good relationship. Rick was the only person in the world who did not look down on Mark because he was the son-in-law. In fact, during the 5 years since Mark married into the family, everyone treated him as a useless person. He basically did not have any friends, but Rick was an exception. A year ago, Rick got a girlfriend who lived in another city. In order to be with her, Rick resigned from his job in LA and went to live with his girlfriend. After the move, he gradually lost contact with Mark. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. Mark wondered how Rick was doing now. Rick used to work in a real estate company, and he had become a senior executive before leaving to be with his girlfriend. He was very experienced in all aspects of property management and development. Mark decided his friend would be the best person to manage the Dragon Bay development project. Thinking of this, Mark found Rick's number in his phone's contact list and called him. "Hello, Rick? This is Mark." Rick was surprised to hear Mark's voice.
Mark, great to hear you. What's up?
"Oh, so you are still talking to me. After you left town and never got in touch, I thought you'd forgotten all about your best friend," Mark joked. When he heard Rick's voice, he actually felt quite warm inside.
What? Mark, we're like brothers. How could I forget about you? You know how it is with women. I had to be with her, but I'm back now.
Rick said. "Hey, is that so? Are you back in LA now? That's excellent. When can we meet up?" Mark asked eagerly. Rick said,
Actually, I was going to call you as soon as I got here, but work's been crazy, and I haven't had the time. All right, I'm working at the Nightfire bar now. How about this? Why don't you come to the bar tonight and find me? We can have a good chat, catch up. It'll be like old times.
Mark thought to himself, didn't this guy work in real estate before? Why is he working at a bar now? All right, then I'll see you tonight, Mark said. Mark hung up the phone and felt very comforted. He had thought that Rick was still out of town. He must have married his girlfriend. He had also become the son-in-law of someone else, just like himself. Mark never thought that his friend would actually return to LA. That was great. He wondered how Rick was doing right now. Well, he'd be sure to find out when they met at the bar tonight. That evening, Mark prepared dinner for his father-in-law and mother-in-law, but he didn't eat with them. Instead, he rushed to the Nightfire bar. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the bar was already open for business. As soon as Mark walked in, Rick came over and greeted him. "Mark, dude, great to see you." There were not many people in the bar at the moment. Rick was wearing the uniform of a bartender. He pulled Mark to a quiet table and they sat down. Mark looked across at his friend and said, "You've always been a white-collar worker. Why are you tending bar?" Rick raised his hand and called the waiter over. He ordered 2 glasses of beer and some snacks. Mark, I'm working in the bar now because I am the manager here. Mark nodded. Huh, you are already a manager. I knew it. No matter what you put your hand to, you do it the best. So, how have you been for the past year? Didn't you move away because of some woman? Why are you back now? I thought you were like me, going to be someone's son-in-law. Rick chuckled. I did want to marry her. I even quit my job and moved to her city so we could be together. But then we broke up, so I came back. Broke up? Mark was surprised because Mark had loved his girlfriend very much. They seemed to have a good relationship. Why did they suddenly break up? Why did you break up? Mark asked. Relationships are great in the beginning, but after a while, they go sour. It's no big deal. Rick said it casually, but Mark still saw a trace of disappointment and sadness in his eyes. It seemed that the relationship and its end were not as simple as Rick said, but since Rick obviously did not want to talk about it, Mark didn't like to ask. After all, this was Rick's private business. Mark raised his hand and patted Rick's shoulder. Well, I'm sorry it didn't work out, but I'm glad you were back. Relationships have to be decided by fate. You can't force them. I know. There are plenty more women out there. Plenty more fish in the sea. Rick shrugged and changed the subject. By the way, how have you been for the past year? I see that you have changed a lot. The black spots on your face are gone. You look like a completely different person. I almost didn't recognize you at first. Me? Mark chuckled. There have definitely been changes, but then everything in the world changes. Rick nodded. Yeah, you always have to look forward. Look, I have become the manager of this bar after coming back. The monthly salary is quite good, really quite good. Hey, Mark, don't be mad at me for not contacting you for such a long time. Tonight, the two of us will have a good chat and catch up. Let's see who ends up under the table first. Rick poured another large beer as he spoke. He raised the glass and gulped it down very quickly. Mark realized that his friend was using alcohol to calm his worries and conceal his grief. Rick, I called because, other than wanting to catch up with you, there is another matter I'd like to discuss. Okay. Rick looked at him with questioning eyes. Whatever it is, just tell me. Don't beat about the bush. You know I'm a straight-up kind of guy. Mark was about to tell Rick about Dragon Bay when a waiter suddenly rushed over and whispered in Rick's ear, Rick, it's not good. Those people are here again. Rick's expression changed when he heard that. What did you say? They came again? The waiter nodded. Yeah, it's still that bunch of debt collectors. They're so aggressive. And this time, more than 10 people turned up. They're blocking the entrance to the bar and saying that they want you to go out there. They say that if you don't go out, they'll come in and smash the bar up. Mark frowned and asked, What's up, Rick? Is there something wrong? Rick said, It's nothing, just a personal matter. I didn't expect them to come to the bar. How about this, Mark? You wait here for a while. Drinks are on the house. I'll be back soon. Rick stood up and was about to leave when the waiter stopped him. He said worriedly, They have a lot of people, and they all have weapons in their hands. I'm afraid it's dangerous for you to go out there and face them alone. Why don't you call the police? Rick waved his hand and said, It's fine. I will go out and take a look. I'm sure I can handle this. Rick went out of the bar. Mark could tell there was something going on outside, so he stood up and went out as well. There were about a dozen gangsters outside on the street. Some of them had dyed yellow hair, and some were wearing jeans with holes in them. The leader was a tanned, tall, and thin young man. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and he looked very fierce. This gang had steel pipes in their hands, so the people who passed by the bar avoided them. When Rick saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. But a moment later, he suppressed his fear and walked forward. He said to the leader, Sting, didn't I tell you? I will definitely return the money in the next 2 days. Go to hell. Unexpectedly, before Rick could finish his words, the tall, thin youth slapped Rick's face. His attack was ruthless, causing Rick to stagger. He almost fell to the ground. Then the young man called Sting threw his cigarette on the ground and crushed it. He pointed at Rick and said, "Cut the crap. You have to pay me back today. Otherwise, I will break one of your legs." Mark had come outside, but he did not go forward. He just stood at the door of the bar and watched the scene. Blood flowed from the corner of Rick's mouth. He covered his face with his hands and stood up. He said to Sting, trembling, "Sting, I really don't have money now, but don't worry. I've already thought of a way to get it. I will definitely return the money in 2 days. Give me 2 more days. Just 2 more, please." 2 days? 2 hours is not enough. My patience is limited. Rick, even if I give you 2 more days, you won't be able to return the money. Look at you, you sniveling coward. I don't want to talk anymore with you today. Return the money now or I'll break one of your legs. Your choice. Sting stared at Rick like a ferocious leopard. The people behind him were shaking the steel pipes in their hands, ready to attack Rick at any time. Rick panicked because he didn't have the money. He dropped to his knees. "Sting, I beg you, please give me more time. Can you give me 2 more days? Just 2. However, Sting lifted his foot and kicked him to the ground. He pointed at Rick and scolded loudly. "I said you were a coward. You really are a coward. You are pretending to be pitiful, aren't you? Let me tell you, there are many people who pretend to be pitiful in front of me, and it doesn't go well for them if they don't return the money they borrow. I think you borrowed so much money from me knowing you couldn't pay it back. Are you sick or just stupid?" Sting did not want to waste any more time. He waved his hand at his subordinates behind him. "Break one of his legs." Then Sting spoke to Rick again. "I will give you 10 more days. If you don't pay me back in 10 days, I will break your other leg." The gangsters with steel pipes immediately surrounded them. "Stop." Just as those gangsters were about to raise the steel pipes and attack Rick, a voice suddenly sounded. The voice was not loud, but it had an indescribable sense of intimidation and control. Sting and his subordinates were surprised. They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man in his 20s standing at the entrance of the bar with his arms crossed. Of course, this person was none other than Mark. In the beginning, Mark did not act rashly because he had to at least figure out what was going on. Now he knew that Rick owed these people money and could not pay them back, so they came to cause trouble. Mark slowly walked over with his arms crossed. "Who the hell are you?" Sting frowned and said to Mark. "You don't need to know who I am. How much does Rick owe you?" Mark said. Sting laughed. "You want to stand up for Rick? All right, I can tell you that Rick owes me $3 million. Hearing this, Mark was a little surprised. $3 million? Why did Rick owe this man so much money? Mark remembered that Rick's family situation was very good. His father ran a medium-sized supermarket, and his business was very good. His mother worked in a big company, and her salary was decent. Their family's annual income was several $1,000,000, and Rick's family was a local one. Although it was not very rich compared to some of the other families in LA, it was far from being poor. They had cars and houses, and they didn't lack spare cash. So why did Rick suddenly borrow so much money from an outside source? And it looked like a loan shark, because only a loan shark would violently demand payback. "Did you hear that? Rick owes me $3 million. You still want to stand up for him? All right, I tell you what, you pay the money back for him, I'll take my men and leave immediately." Sting looked at Mark provocatively. He realized that Mark's attire was very ordinary. There was no way he was rich. He definitely wouldn't be able to come up with $3 million. "But you have to think about it. If you can't come up with the $3 million for Rick, not only will I break one of Rick's legs today, I will also break one of your legs, Sting said again. Hearing this, Rick panicked because he knew very well that Mark was just a son-in-law who had married into a family. How could he come up with $3 million? Rick did not want to involve Mark in this matter, so he turned his eyes to Mark and said, "Mark, this matter has nothing to do with you. You must not interfere. I don't want you getting involved." Mark walked over and grabbed Rick's arm. He pulled him up from the ground. "Rick, how can you beg so easily? When did you become so spineless? Where's your backbone?" Mark said. Rick lowered his head in shame, unable to say a word. Sting, on the other hand, laughed. "Backbone? What a joke. It has come to this point and you're still talking about backbone? How much is the backbone worth? Previously, Rick had integrity, but then he could not pay back the money, and he was beaten to the ground by me over and over again. What does he know of backbone?" Mark frowned and said to Rick, "Rick, your family's conditions are not bad. Why are you borrowing so much money from loan sharks?" Rick said with a long face, "Mark, it's hard to talk about. My family is not as rich as it was before. My mother had cancer. I needed money, so I borrowed $300,000 from Sting and promised to pay it back in 2 months. But when I returned the money after 2 months, the interest was already frighteningly high. It went from $300,000 to $1 million, and I could only return a small portion of it. But the remaining interest was still rising, even though I was intermittently paying it back. But now it has risen to $3 million. The rate at which I am able to return the money just can't catch up to the rate at which the interest is increasing." Mark sneered at Sting. "It is indeed a high-interest loan. The interest is rolling even better than a snowball going downhill." Sting also sneered and said, "You can't blame me for that. I didn't force him to borrow the money, did I? If he didn't borrow it, or if he just paid me back, I wouldn't make things difficult for him. All right, stop talking nonsense, kid. Can you repay the money for Rick or not? If you can't, I'm going to make a move." Rick suddenly grabbed Mark's arm. "Mark, get out of here. This has nothing to do with you. Sting and the others are not to be trifled with. Don't make trouble for yourself." "Trouble?" Mark instantly smiled. "I am never afraid of trouble. Besides, you are my friend. So what if it's troublesome?" "All right, Rick, I'll settle this matter for you. You don't have to worry about it." Mark patted Rick's shoulder. "Huh? You sound confident. You want to help him settle his debt? From your words, you think you can help Rick pay back the $3 million? All right, then show me the money right now. I'll give you 1 minute," Sting said. Mark said, "Are you sure you want us to return $3 million? "Of course, $3 million, not a single cent less." Sting's tone was rude and unreasonable. Mark smiled and slowly walked over to Sting. He stared into his eyes and said word by word, "I will give you 1 minute, starting now. Take your men and get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I won't give you a penny, not to mention $3 million. And I'll break one of your legs." "Huh, you're quite arrogant, aren't you?" Sting was so angry that he was amused by Mark. "Interesting. I, Sting, have been a loan shark for so many years. This is the first time I've met someone like you. Kid, did I hear you right? You think you can break one of my legs?" Mark said, "You didn't hear me wrong. I will say it again. You have 1 minute to take your people and disappear. Otherwise, don't blame me for breaking one of your legs." Mark knew that Rick had only borrowed $300,000 initially, and had been returning the money intermittently. In fact, he had already returned more than $1 million. The $300,000 had been paid back a long time ago, but the rate at which he paid back the money was not as fast as the rate at which the interest increased. Therefore, no matter how much he returned, he still owed more. Until now, he had owed $3 million. Therefore, Mark had no intention of giving Sting another cent. Sting, right? Rick has already paid back the $300,000 he borrowed, so there's no way he will give you another cent today. Furthermore, you have to return the extra money Rick gave you. The exact amount, not a single cent less, Mark said again. Hearing this, Sting and the others laughed loudly. Did you guys hear that? Not only does this fool not plan to return the money, but he also wants me to give Rick here the money he's already paid me. He's nuts! The punks behind Sting also laughed loudly. His brain must be full of water. He actually dared to ask Sting to return the money. He must be tired of living. Rick was also surprised. He panicked and pulled Mark to the side. Mark, I beg you, don't offend Sting again. Otherwise he will beat me to death, and he will not let you go if you don't leave quickly. As Mark's friend, Rick knew Mark pretty well. Mark was just a son-in-law. How could he be a match for Sting and the others? Sting and the others stopped laughing. Rick, Sting said, I'll give you another 10 seconds. If you don't pay me back, I will not only break one of your legs, I will do more. So you have to think this through clearly. This is the entrance of the Night Fire Bar. If the bar owner, John Steele Barson, finds out, because of you fighting in front of the bar, his business was hindered, do you think he will be happy with you? What do you think he will do? Rick's face instantly turned pale. The boss of Night Fire Bar was Steele Barson, and Steele Barson was also a gangster. His methods were cruel. If Rick were to fight in front of the bar because he owed money, if he delayed the bar's business, Steele Barson would kick Rick without hesitation. Thinking of this, Rick was so scared that his whole body trembled. Mark raised his hand again and patted his shoulder. Don't be afraid, buddy. With me here, no one will dare touch you. After that, Mark turned his eyes to Sting again, but his face hardened. 1 minute has passed, and you bastards haven't disappeared yet. I'm sorry. As soon as his voice faded, Mark dashed towards Sting like a gust of wind. Before Sting and the others could react, they heard some slapping sounds, and all the underlings behind Sting fell to the ground. This was a joke. These hooligans could fight normally, but when faced with a master from the profound group like Mark, they were nothing. Mark stopped and stood back in his original position. Sting was dumbfounded, because the dozen or so lackeys holding steel pipes behind him were all lying on the ground, moaning and groaning. They could not even get up. You! Sting looked at Mark in a different way. He could not believe that it was this man who made a move just now. In an instant, more than 10 of his men were lying on the ground. No matter how stupid Sting was, he understood now that Mark was an expert. Rick was also shocked. He did not even see how Mark made a move just now, but in the blink of an eye, those hooligans fell to the ground. Mark, when did you become so powerful? Rick looked at Mark in disbelief. Mark just smiled silently. Outside the Night Fire Bar, Rick looked in amazement at his friend Mark. Rick couldn't believe that Mark had just disabled all of Sting's minions. Sting couldn't believe how powerful Mark was either. Kid, who the hell are you? Sting shouted at Mark. You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that you used the loan as an excuse to bully my friend, and you even threatened me. So today, I will break one of your legs. Mark's words were spoken casually, but Sting's expression changed. He backed away slowly. Kid, don't come any closer. If you lay a finger on me, you will regret it. Hey, is that so? I've never tasted regret before. I'd like to try it today. After saying that, Mark dove towards Sting. A miserable scream filled the air as Mark knocked Sting to the ground. Mark raised his foot and was about to stamp on one of Sting's legs. Sting was so anxious that he broke out in a cold sweat. He shouted, "No, no, don't break my legs. I will return the money. I will give it all back." Too late. Mark stamped hard on Sting's leg, and a cracking sound echoed up the street. "No!" Sting screamed loudly. The veins in his face bulged, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Sting's leg was completely crippled, and Mark did not intend to stop there. He slowly lifted his foot and looked at Sting's other leg. Mark shook his head and said, "I only crippled one of your legs so far. You still have one left. I wonder if you intend to continue being a loan shark. If you do, I should break both of your legs, because I want to see if you can still be a loan shark when you're in a wheelchair." "No, don't! Spare me! If you cripple my other leg as well, my life will be over. I'll pay you, all right?" Sting shouted loudly. There was despair in his voice. At that moment, a card fell out of his pocket. It was a bank card. Mark picked up the card and looked at it. Sting panted as he shouted, "My card has exactly $3 million on it. I will pay everything. I only ask you to spare me. I will never dare to be a loan shark in the future. I will never dare to harm others again." $3 million? Mark suddenly smiled. Sting had tried to get Rick to pay him $3 million, but in the end, he paid Rick $3 million. Plus, one of his legs was crippled. Mark smiled to himself. It was about time a guy like this got a taste of his own medicine. "Password?" Mark asked. Sting told him the password without hesitation. 324321. "All right. For the sake of this card, I will spare you." Mark raised his foot and kicked Sting's butt hard. He shouted angrily, "Now get lost." Sting felt like he had been pardoned and wanted to get up from the ground. However, his leg had been crippled. He couldn't get up even after crawling for a long time. By this time, the dozen gangsters who had been knocked down by Mark were finally coming to. They stood up in a daze, and Sting shouted at them, "What the hell are you guys standing there for? Hurry up and help me! I need you to take me to the hospital!" The hooligans ran over to him. They lifted Sting up and carried him away quickly. Silence returned outside the Night Fire bar. Mark took the card and went over to Rick. "Rick, take this card. There are $3 million on it. Consider it compensation for Sting bullying you." Rick was still in a daze when Mark forced the card into his hand. "Mark, when did you become so powerful? Even Sting is not a match for you. You are really different from before." Rick's heart was filled with emotions. Mark said, "I am different from before, but you are also different from before. Rick, if you still think of me as a friend, tell me what happened. How did you become so poor that you had to get mixed up with loan sharks and violent guys like Sting?" Rick could no longer hide his pain or hold back his tears. The pain and despair that he had suppressed for a long time exploded. "Mark, I lied to you before. Actually, I'm not living well. Over the past year, I've been living a very miserable life. My parents have been in a very bad situation as well." Looking at Rick's miserable appearance, Mark knew that he must have been through a lot of stuff in the past year. They were standing at the entrance of the bar now, so it was not appropriate to say too much. So Mark and Rick went inside the Night Fire bar and found a quiet private room. Rick could not control his emotions. He picked up a large bottle of beer from the waiter. He raised his head and drank all the beer. He wiped his tears and said, "I had a girlfriend a year ago. Her name was Sophie. I really liked her. Our relationship was really good. Her family lived in another town. She was the only daughter at home, so her parents hoped that I would go to their place. But I knew what that meant. It meant that when I went to them, I would become their son-in-law. I didn't want to do that because I am an only child. If I left, who would take care of my parents? Rick shook his head sadly. But in the end, I agreed because I loved her, and I didn't want to lose her. And my parents agreed as well. So I quit my job in LA, took the $3 million that my parents had saved over the years, and went to Sophie's city. I planned to invest the money and do business there, and then make the money back so I could repay my parents. But not long after I got there, I found out that I had been cheated. Sophie did not really like me at all. The $3 million that I was prepared to invest was cheated out of me by Sophie and her mother. I had nothing left, and after deceiving me of my money, Sophie soon had a rich new lover. Rick shrugged. I was really angry because that $3 million was my parents' hard-earned money that they'd been saving for many years. So I went to ask Sophie to give it back. That day, her rich boyfriend was also there, so there was a fight. I had no relatives to help me, and her boyfriend called a large group of friends to beat me up, and then they threw me out into the street. Rick paused again and heaved several deep breaths. During that period of time, I didn't dare to go home, and I didn't dare to tell my parents what had happened. I was afraid that they would worry, and I was also afraid that Sophie's boyfriend would take revenge on my parents. I had scars all over my body from the beating and no money. For ages, I wandered that unfamiliar city like a beggar, living on the street and taking handouts where I could get them. Later on, Rick continued, my parents found out that I was in trouble. After all, they loved me, and they realized that something might have happened to me. So my parents drove there to look for me, but they didn't expect to get into a car accident on the way. My father was killed on the spot, and my mother... Rick gulped and for a moment stared down at his hands. A deep shuddering racked Rick's body. My mother was lucky. She was only lightly injured. She continued looking for me on her own, and she found me in a mess on the street. She was furious. My mother was a very strong person. She took me to Sophie's house and tried to get justice for me, but... Rick gulped again. But Sophie's boyfriend beat me up again and took my mother away. I didn't know where they took her or what they were doing to her. I called the police, but they didn't find her for a month. She was in an abandoned building, still alive, but she'd been tortured beyond recognition. My mother was diagnosed with cancer not long after she was found. I brought her back to LA. Then I took care of my father's funeral. After that, I sold the supermarket my father ran and sold our house. But my mother's illness grew worse. And just a week ago... Rick gasped, and tears slipped down his face. A week ago, my mother... She died. In the private room at the Night Fire Bar, Rick Ford breathed heavily for a moment while regaining his composure, then looked up at Mark. After my mother passed away, I didn't have a single cent on me. I had no choice but to borrow $300,000 from Sting to buy a casket for my mother and to pay for her funeral. But I never would have thought that the interest on the loan would be so devastating. It was like a rolling snowball. The interest was so high that it just kept growing and growing. You were cheated by that Sting. Mark shook his head helplessly. He felt a little depressed. He'd had no idea that his good friend had encountered so many hardships over the past year and lived such a miserable life. Luckily, Mark had met with Rick today. Otherwise, Rick would have been beaten up by Sting. He would have been disabled. He would not even have been able to take care of himself. The situation would have been even more tragic than it already was. Rick sighed. Mark, the fact that I'm here able to tell you all this is all thanks to you today. If you hadn't been here, Sting would have really crippled me, and my life would have been over. Rick, is this the reason why you didn't want to contact me after you came back? Mark asked softly. Rick wiped his tears and said, I'm living such a miserable life now. I don't want to lose face in front of you, and I don't want to drag you down. That's why I didn't dare to contact you. You didn't treat me as a friend. Friends help each other when times are tough. Mark shook his head. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. No matter what happened before, it's in the past. Rick, you still have to look forward. You still have to stay alert and continue your life. Rick said with a painful expression, I know, but the pain in my heart is too great, do you know? Whenever I think of my parents' deaths, my heart feels like it is being stabbed. If my dad and mom hadn't gone to look for me, my dad wouldn't have been killed by a car. Do you know how my dad died? Half of his body was crushed on the road. And my mother, she was strong all her life, but in the end, Sophie's boyfriend made her a beggar. I think I'm a sinner. I have let my parents down. I don't deserve to live at all. Mark could naturally understand Rick's pain. He filed Sophie's name away in his brain. He didn't expect that just a woman would be able to trap his friends so badly. This debt had to be settled properly, and Mark intended to settle it. But the most important thing right now was to calm Rick down. Rick had been carrying the bitterness deep in his heart for a long time. Now that it had suddenly burst out, he couldn't relax. So Mark didn't say anything else. He just drank with Rick. The two of them drank until midnight. After the bar closed, Rick was drunk. He said, Mark, do you know? Only alcohol anesthesia can make me feel better. But I'm not sure even that is working now. All right, Rick, you've drunk too much today. I'll take you home. Where do you live now? Mark supported the drunk Rick out of the bar. I live in a rented house near here. You don't have to worry about me. I can get home by myself. Rick tried to shake Mark's hand off. You are stinking drunk. How can you walk home? I'll take you. Mark helped Rick cross the street and find the house he rented. It was actually a very simple old house, the kind that was about to be demolished. It formed a sharp contrast with the tall and new buildings nearby. Mark felt a little bitter in his heart. He did not expect Rick to be in such a dire situation. He took out the key from Rick's pocket, opened the door, and helped him up to his room and onto his bed, where Rick promptly fell asleep. Because it was almost dawn, Mark didn't go home immediately. He was a little worried about Rick, so he stayed by his side. When it was almost noon, Rick finally woke up. Mark ordered takeout for them. He planned to comfort Rick and tell him about Dragon Bay after Rick had eaten some food. After all, Mark had come to find Rick for a purpose. He wanted to ask Rick to take care of the Dragon Bay for him. Mark, I'm sorry for letting you see me like this. Rick looked embarrassed. Hey, why are you saying this? You and I are brothers, Mark said. Rick, you should be more open-minded. Life still needs to continue. Also, I came to find you because there is one more thing I want to tell you. I recently picked up a property I want to develop. You've done this before, and you have experience. So why don't you just quit working at the bar and come work with me? Rick's eyes widened. Really? Mark, you're doing your own real estate business? Mark grinned. Don't look at me like that. I know I used to be a loser in your eyes, but that was in the past. Rick, this time, I really want to do real estate business. That's why I need a capable assistant. Of course, I won't force you, but will you at least consider it? Rick shook his head. No need to even think about it. I didn't want to work in that bar anyway. It's just that the salary at the bar is pretty good, and I need the money to pay in order to pay back the loan I got from Sting. But since the loan is taken care of and you need me now, I'll resign from the bar tomorrow. That's great. Mark looked pleased. Don't worry. When the development of Dragon Bay is done, you'll get an excellent salary. Also, I'll give you dividends. I guarantee that you'll make more than at the bar. Dragon Bay? Rick was surprised. Mark, are you developing Dragon Bay? That is a golden area of the city and is very popular. But I heard that something happened there and several developers died in a row. That matter has already been resolved by me. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Mark reassured his friend. Rick looked relieved. That's good. As for the development plan, I'll tell you about it in detail when you resign at the bar and officially come work for me, Mark said. Okay, Rick nodded. Also, Rick, Sophie caused you so much trouble. Not only did she swindle you out of your money, but she also caused the death of your mother and father. Do you plan to let this matter go just like that? Mark asked. Rick immediately lowered his head. I want to kill that woman right now, even in my dreams. But what can I do? She has a boyfriend now, and he has money and power. I can't do anything to him. Money and power? Don't worry, I'll help you settle this matter. I'll help you take revenge for your parents, Mark said with confidence. No, please don't. Rick looked worried. He hurriedly said to Mark, I appreciate your good intentions, but Sophie's boyfriend is Andy Sampson. Andy's father is the richest man in Carver City, and he has an uncle in politics. So Andy has always been arrogant and domineering. No one can do anything to him. We're just nobodies. We can't win against him. So please don't take risks for me. You are my only friend, and I don't want you getting hurt. Don't worry, Rick. I know what to do with this matter. You don't have to worry about it. Mark tried to assure him. No, Mark, don't do it for me. Before Rick could finish, the door of the rented house was kicked open from the outside. Mark and Rick were startled. The door was wooden, and it was not strong. It was kicked to the side and hung off one hinge. Mark looked up and saw a big and burly man standing in the doorway. This man was well over 6 feet tall, and his body bulged with muscle. He also looked fierce and menacing. His fists were like sledgehammers, and he stood there like a huge mountain. When he saw this burly man, Rick's expression immediately changed. Mark, you should leave quickly. It's him! It's him! Rick was so frightened that he pushed Mark hard to get him to leave quickly. However, the burly man stood in the doorway, blocking it. He was staring at them with a fierce look on his face. Mark was not afraid. He was just surprised. He asked Rick, Rick, who is this man? His name is Tank. He is the bodyguard of Sophie's boyfriend. He is also the most powerful fighter under him. This person used to compete in underground cage fights. He has never lost. Please, Mark, hurry up and leave. I really don't want you involved in my mess. Mark frowned. This person is Andy's bodyguard? Why is he here? He must be here for me, Rick said. It seems like Andy won't let me go. I knew that he wouldn't let me go easily, but I never thought that he would chase me from Carver City to L.A. Mark said, What do you mean? Sophie cheated you out of your money, and her boyfriend Andy beat you up. He even caused your parents to die, yet he's still after you? Damn it, this is going too far, isn't it? Surely you want revenge now. At this moment, the huge man-mountain standing in the doorway stretched out a finger. He beckoned to Mark and Rick, then said arrogantly, Both of you, come out now. Mr. Sampson is waiting outside. Get the hell out here now. Rick's expression changed once again. Andy is right outside? Is Sophie here too? Mark, please don't get into a fight with them. Hurry up and leave. Rick was no longer afraid for himself because his parents were already dead, and all his money had been stolen, leaving him with nothing in his life. However, he was worried about Mark. Mark was his only friend. He didn't want Mark to be affected because of this. Rick wouldn't be able to live with himself if Mark was injured. Mark smiled coldly. Good. I was wondering how to find Andy and Sophie. I didn't expect them to deliver themselves to me. That's very convenient. Rick, since they're right here, I will settle this score for you today. Mark, don't be impulsive, Rick pleaded. You can't imagine what kind of evil woman Sophie is. She is going to kill you. Mark chuckled. Kill me? All right. I would like to meet the person who is going to kill me today. Stop your damn nonsense. Get the hell out here right now. Don't let Mr. Sampson wait too long. The big guy, Tank, said in a vicious tone. Then he moved his huge body to the side. Rick, let's go. Follow me, and we'll go and meet with Andy and Sophie. Mark was a little excited. He grabbed Rick's arm and pulled him out of the rented house. The two of them followed Tank to a small alley outside. There was a Maybach parked at the entrance of the alley. In front of the luxury car, there was a man and woman who were leaning against the hood and talking to each other. The man was about 25 or 26 years old. His hair was blue, and he was covered in Armani from head to toe. He looked quite handsome, but there was arrogance and viciousness mixed in his handsomeness. This person was none other than Sophie's new boyfriend, Andy. The snake-like woman leaning on Andy's arm was Sophie. She was wearing a tight red dress. It outlined her beautiful figure and curly hair. She was wearing an expensive shoulder bag and had a pretty face. But because she had put on thick makeup, she looked a little tacky. Tank walked over and said respectfully to Andy, Mr. Sampson, I've brought him. Andy reached out and pinched Sophie's chest hard. Sophie said in a sweet voice, Ouch, you hurt me. Wait a moment. Wait for me to get rid of that annoying ex-boyfriend of yours first. Then I will play with you properly. After Andy said that, he casually turned his head and looked at Mark and Rick. Oh, why is there one more person? Andy glanced at Mark with disdain, then waved his hand and said, Those who don't want to die, get the hell out of my way. I'm here to find Rick today. Rick pushed Mark with all his might and said anxiously, Mark, hurry up and leave. Why should I leave? Mark deliberately raised his voice and looked at Andy. You wanted to find my friend, Rick? Why are you looking for him? Andy was surprised when he heard this. Even Sophie, who was beside him, was surprised. Kid, what did you say just now? Andy raised his chin and asked Mark arrogantly. Mark cleared his throat and raised his voice again. He said word by word, I asked why you are looking for my friend. Does this have anything to do with you? Who do you think you are? You dare to speak to this Mr. Sampson like this? Tank demanded. Sophie recognized Mark. She whispered into Andy's ear. Andy, I know this person. He is Rick's friend. I saw him when I was dating Rick. He's a wimp, nothing but a son-in-law. A son-in-law? Andy burst into laughter when he heard that. What year is it now? How can there be a son-in-law? Sophie, you're not lying to me, right? How cowardly does a man need to be to become someone's son-in-law? Andy looked at Rick and said, Rick, you're nothing but a useless piece of trash. You deserve a useless friend like this son-in-law here. You two are quite the pair. Rick became anxious when he heard them laughing at Mark. He took a step forward and said to Sophie, Sophie, it doesn't matter what you do to me. Don't insult my friend. Sophie snorted and looked at Rick with contempt. Then she said, What can you do about it if I do insult him? Anyway, it's not like I'm lying. He is a son-in-law, which makes him a loser. You! Rick clenched his fists. Mark frowned and looked at Sophie. He remembered that when Rick had just fallen in love with Sophie, Mark had met this woman. At that time, he had thought that she was quite good and looked quite nice. She had an indifferent personality then and did not like to talk much. He had never thought that she would be so vicious. Andy said impatiently, "Enough, stop talking. My time is precious. I don't want to waste it on you ants. Rick, today, I have 2 matters to attend to. The first is to get your dad's compensation money and give it to Sophie." "What?" Rick was furious and said, "You want that money? That is the compensation money for my dad's death when he was hit by the car. You're not entitled to it." Andy said casually, "I don't care about the money, but Sophie wants it. I heard that your dad's compensation is a few $1,000,000. That's not a bad price for human life. I heard your dad was hit by a truck on the street and his body was smashed. It was really tragic. But then again, your father had a rotten life. It's great that the compensation will be so much, but you don't deserve that kind of money, so you may as well hurry up and give it to Sophie." You, Rick was so angry that he almost choked. Sophie had claimed she was in love with him. She had cheated him of all his money and been at least partly responsible for the death of his parents. Now, this vicious woman wants to get her claws on his father's compensation. That money was exchanged for his father's life, and this woman actually wanted it too. This was going too far. "Rick, don't tell me you really think that I fell in love with you. You're too pathetic for anyone to fall in love with. If it wasn't for the fact that you had so much money in your family, I wouldn't have bothered with you in the first place. At the end of the day, I was only pretending I loved you, that's all. I did it to get your family's money, because I have decided that I want all your money. Your dad's compensation naturally belongs to me." Sophie looked at Rick with disdain, then said, "Although I'm with Andy now, I don't lack money. But smart girls never complain about having too much money. Besides, it's several $1,000,000, not a small amount. So of course I want it." "Sophie, you're going too far. I'll fight you to the death over this." Although Rick's personality was a little cowardly, he still had some guts. At this moment, he was really angered by his ex. He clenched his fist and prepared to attack her. But Mark pulled Rick back because he knew that Rick was no match for Andy. Wasn't Tank standing right there beside him? If Rick rushed over recklessly, he would definitely get the worst of it. Rick scowled at Mark and said, "Mark, don't stop me. Even if I have to sacrifice my life today, I will at least die with that woman. How can such a vicious woman exist in this world?" Mark said, "Rick, Sophie's life is worthless. If you die because of her, it will not be worth it. Don't worry, I will help you with this. We can fix it." After holding Rick back, Mark raised his hand and patted his friend's shoulder. After that, he walked towards Andy and Sophie. Mark stopped about 2 or 3 meters away from them and looked at Sophie. "Sophie, right? So you have cheated and lied to my friend here from the beginning because of his money. Now you have fulfilled your wish and cheated him out of all of it. You were partly responsible for his parents' deaths, and now you're not even willing to let go of the compensation he's entitled to for his father's death. It's foul that you treated him so badly and bullied him out of everything," Mark said. Sophie snorted coldly and said, "What does it have to do with you? I want to bully him. What can you do? Don't tell me you want to stand up for him. Come on, you're nothing but a son-in-law. My boyfriend can beat you to death, and he will if you don't get the hell out of my way." Before Sophie could finish speaking, Mark's hand had already moved. He gently flipped his right hand and gathered his strength in his palm. He silently chanted the triple flame fire controlling technique. Then, with a crackle, a golden fireball shot out from his palm and flew toward Sophie. At that time, Sophie was scolding Mark. Suddenly, she saw a yellow thing flying toward her. Her eyes widened, but the thing was flying too fast. Before she could react, it flew into her mouth. That small ball of fire shot into Sophie's mouth. Sophie was surprised for half a second, and then she screamed as the burning started. Still screaming, she flapped her hands in front of her face and spat until the ball of fire popped out. She had a split second of relief before the ball of fire landed on her body and, with a whoosh, immediately ignited her. Ah! Sophie let out a heart-wrenching cry. She waved her hands and struggled with all her strength, wanting to put out the fire on her body. Andy, standing next to her, was also shocked. He had no idea why Sophie was suddenly on fire, because it had all happened so fast that he and Tank did not clearly see what was going on. Even though the charming woman, his girlfriend, who was standing next to him, had turned into a human inferno, Andy's first reaction wasn't to save her, but to take a few steps back. He distanced himself from Sophie as if he was afraid that the fire on Sophie's body would spread to him. Sophie was burning and crying out loudly. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "Andy! Andy, save me! Save me! Ha ha!" Hearing Sophie's cry, Andy finally reacted. He turned to the surprised Tank beside him and yelled, "Tank, quickly, save her!" Although Tank was sturdy, he wasn't very smart. He ran to Sophie to put out the flames, but when he got within a couple of feet, the fire leapt from her body to his. Fortunately, as the fire jumped toward him, Tank took 2 steps back, so only his clothes were burned. After he rolled on the ground a few times, the fire was put out. But even so, the arrogant Tank became a little embarrassed. He turned to Andy and said, "Mr. Sampson, I can't stop the fire. We need water." Andy also realized that it was easier said than done to put out the fire. They needed water, and fast. But where could they get water? Seeing Sophie struggling and screaming in the sea of fire, Rick was expressionless. He used to love this woman, but now that he had been wounded by her, his feelings for her had disappeared. The only feeling he had left for her was hate. Sophie struggled painfully as she shouted, "Andy, save me! Save me!" But Andy was too scared. He never thought that the woman who was so enchanting in his arms would suddenly be surrounded by a big fire. He did ask his bodyguard, Tank, to save her, but to put out the fire, they needed water. And where could they get water in this quiet alley? In fact, it was already too late to save Sophie. Her screams gradually faded, and after a few minutes, she collapsed to the ground. But the fire was still burning. Sophie's body twitched in the fire, and she shouted one last time, "Andy!" After that, she stopped moving. Her body slowly turned into ashes in the fire. When the fire died down, all that was left of Sophie was a small pile of ash. A gust of wind blew over, and the ashes swirled into the air and dispersed with the wind. A sinful life just vanished like that. You can shoot fire to kill people?" Andy looked at Mark with fear in his eyes. "Andy, didn't you like Sophie a lot? Then you can go with her," Mark said coldly. Sophie was already dead, and in his eyes, this Andy was already dead too. Hearing Mark's words, Andy was so scared that his legs went weak. He shouted at his bodyguard with all his strength, "Tank, go kill him for me!" Tank roared and rushed towards Mark like a charging bull. A few seconds after Sophie's ashes dispersed in the breeze, Andy ordered Tank, his bodyguard, to attack Mark. But Mark kicked Tank's huge body away like a big ball. Tank fell heavily on the ground, stirring up a large amount of dust. This kick made Tank bleed from his nostrils. He lay on the ground and struggled for a long time, but he still couldn't get up. It showed how powerful this kick was. Even Mark himself was surprised. He had only used 5% of his strength in that kick. If he used his full strength, Tank's internal organs would definitely be destroyed, and he would die. Andy was shocked once again. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. With just one kick, Mark had kicked his capable bodyguard to the ground, and he couldn't get up. Andy knew very well how powerful Tank was. When he had been cage fighting, he had never lost. He was once known as the king of underground fighting, but because of his incredible strength, Andy had paid a high price to hire Tank to be his personal bodyguard. Because of this personal bodyguard, Andy had done a lot of despicable things without any restraint. But now, this bodyguard could not withstand even a single blow from Mark. After throwing Tank away, Mark slowly turned his cold eyes to Andy. Andy felt Mark's killing intent and was scared. He had only brought one bodyguard with him, and that bodyguard was incapacitated. Andy had no doubt that Mark could kill him with just a move of his finger. Terrified, Andy turned and ran. Mark narrowed his eyes. Andy thought he could save himself by running. In his dreams. A stone shot out from Mark's hand and hit Andy squarely between the shoulder blades. Andy screamed and fell to the ground. Mark walked over and lifted Andy up by the scruff of his neck. Andy trembled in Mark's hand. The fear in his eyes was indescribable. Andy, right? I don't care how much harm you have done in the past, but you harmed my friend's parents. These are 2 lives lost that you're responsible for. So now I will use your miserable life to pay for their 2 lives. What do you think? Seems fair to me. Upon hearing this, Andy almost peed his pants. He said with a trembling voice, Don't kill me. I won't dare do it again. It's too late to beg for mercy now. Mark shook Andy slightly. Did you never think, while you were harming others, that this day wouldn't come? Andy's eyes widened with fear. No, wait. This is all a misunderstanding. Don't kill me. I will give you money, no matter how much it costs. As long as you spare me, your family will have money. Hearing this, Mark's anger immediately rose. Money? Do you think everyone likes money as much as you? Do you think that money can be used to settle everything? No matter how much money you spend today, you won't be able to buy back this rotten life of yours. Andy's body trembled. You really dare to kill me? This is a lawful society. Killing is against the law. You don't dare to kill me. The Sampson family is a big family in Carver City. If you kill me, you won't be able to take the consequences. Eh? Is that so? There's nothing in this world that I can't bear. Tell me, what will the Sampson family of Carver City do to me if I kill you? After Mark finished speaking, the killing intent in his eyes became even more obvious. Andy had completely lost all hope. He remembered that Mark had just killed someone with a fireball from his palm. In an instant, Sophie had been burned to ashes. He suddenly felt that this young man was very different. He wasn't an ordinary person, and he wanted to kill Andy. Don't kill me. It's all because of Sophie. It was her scheme. That's why your friend's parents died. It has nothing to do with me. Nothing, you hear? In a moment of desperation, Andy shouted loudly. You still dare to deny responsibility? Mark's eyes turned cold, and his hand suddenly grabbed Andy's neck. Andy couldn't catch his breath, but Mark suddenly let go of his throat. Then he swung his arm and threw Andy in front of Rick. Andy fell to the ground like a rag in front of Rick. Mark said, "Rick, this man killed your mother and father. You should come and get justice for them yourself." Rick looked at Andy, who was lying on the ground in a limp heap, and his eyes instantly turned red. He remembered the car accident that killed his father. He recalled that his mother had been humiliated by a beggar that Andy had found. Rick couldn't help but clench his fists and grit his teeth. Rick hated his parents' murderer so much, and now that murderer was standing right in front of him. He gritted his teeth so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Then he slowly approached Andy. "Andy, you murderer, I will kill you." Rick raised his fist and aimed his first punch at Andy. Thud, pow, smack. Rick used all his strength to vent his hatred on Andy until Andy was beaten black and blue, and blood was pouring from his head and body. Andy fell to the ground and stopped moving, only twitching occasionally. Rick was so tired that he was gasping for breath, and only then did he stop. Mark walked over and pulled Rick up, pushing him gently aside. Then he gathered strength in his palm again, silently chanting the triple flame fire controlling technique in his heart. A moment later, a golden fireball shot out from his palm. It directly hit Andy's body. There was a crackling sound as the flames took hold of Andy's body. Andy only had time to let out a few miserable cries before he was burned to ashes by the fire. Just like Sophie, Andy's ashes were blown away by the wind and disappeared without a trace. The two sinners were gone. Mark slowly retracted his hand and said, "Rick, your parents' revenge has been taken." Rick fell to his knees and shouted to the sky, "Dad, Mom, did you see that? The murderer who killed you has gone to hell. You can rest in peace." Then Rick cried again. Although his revenge had happened, the dead were still dead. Mark walked over and patted him on the shoulder. After a while, Rick stopped crying. Then he suddenly remembered something very serious. "Mark, you have avenged my parents and killed Andy and Sophie. It is a relief, but killing people is against the law. What if—" Mark interrupted him and said decisively, "There is no what if. They turned into ashes and the ashes blew away. No one will be able to find any evidence to prove that these two were killed by me or anyone. Don't worry." Rick thought about it and agreed. Sophie and Andy had been burned to ashes. Not a trace was left behind, and this alley was very quiet. Usually, very few people came here. No one had observed the argument or the flames. There were no cameras here either. However, Rick turned his head and looked at Tank on the ground. This man had witnessed the scene just now. He was the witness. As for Tank, he had witnessed Sophie and his master, Andy, being burned to ashes with his own eyes. His heart was filled with shock. Although he wasn't smart, he was not a fool. He realized that this young man called Mark was a very terrifying person, a person that he could not afford to offend. The only way Tank could keep his life now was to escape. Thinking of this, he used all his strength, struggled to stand, and stumbled to the front of the luxury car. He opened the car door and sat in it. "Mark, he's trying to get away!" Rick shouted. However, what happened next proved that Rick's worries were unnecessary. As soon as he shouted, a golden fireball flew out from Mark's palm. It landed on the luxury car. The car ignited. The fire immediately covered the entire car. A moment later, with a loud bang, the vehicle exploded. The sound alarmed a person who was passing the mouth of the alley. When that person saw this scene, he was shocked. Then, he quickly walked forward. He took out his phone. He dialed the police number. "Hello, police? A car just blew up." "Yes, just now. There seems to be someone inside. In a small alley. Yes." Rick looked at the burning car and was surprised. Not only could Mark spit fire from his palm, but the fire that he spat out was so powerful that it could even burn a car. Tank would definitely die in there. Mark clapped his hands and said to Rick, "Rick, let's go. We have nothing to do here. The rest will be dealt with by the police. Someone has already called them. I think they will be here soon." Mark pulled Rick away. After they arrived at a quiet place, the two of them stopped. Rick stared at Mark with shock and doubt. "Mark, I really didn't expect you to change so much in just a year. How did you become so powerful? You can even throw fire from your palm. What kind of martial arts are you practicing?" Mark smiled and said, "This you will know in the future. Now that you have seen my strength, you can relax and follow me. I guarantee that no one will dare to bully you in the future." Rick said, "Mark, thank you for avenging me. My parents should be able to rest in peace. From now on, I have nothing to do but be with you. I will follow you. Mark, you are my savior." "Don't say that. We are friends, nothing else. All right, Rick, this matter is finished. You don't have to think any more about it. Find a chance to quit your job at the bar in the next 2 days, then come see me." Rick nodded. "All right, Mark, I'll do that. I wonder what the future will bring." After saying goodbye to Rick, Mark received a call from Marcy.
"Mr. Johnson, the fairy toner has been produced. Quality inspection has been approved. Next, I'm going to package it and then put it up for sale in the Green family's supermarkets and cosmetics stores. Also, this fairy toner should have a name, right? We could use it as the basis for a whole product line. Let's introduce this fairy toner first. And if the result is good, we can introduce a whole range of skincare products."
Mark said, "We have to give it a proper name. After all, we have to make it into a big brand in the future. Let's call it the Nick Beauty Fairy Toner," Marcy said.
Nick Beauty Fairy Toner? What meaning does the word Nick Beauty have?
"My wife's name is Nicole. Nick is the first part of her name, and then the word beauty. It means that I think that my wife will be beautiful every day in the future." Hearing this, Marcy's heart felt heavy. Without a second thought, Mark named his product for his wife. It seemed that his wife held a very prominent position in his heart. Marcy was disappointed, but she quickly adjusted her mood. On the other end of the phone, she said,
"Okay, let's introduce this fairy toner first. Mr. Johnson, with the name of a plant or herb that's in it as the starting point. This will increase our credibility. For example, the fairy toner that we are introducing can be called the Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner. In the future, our other products will use the names of other herbs and plants that are in them."
"Okay, that works. Marcy, do as you see fit. I believe in you. Thank you for your trouble," Mark said. Although Marcy was young, she was much more experienced in doing business than Mark. After all, her family was a big business family. Marcy said,
"Mr. Johnson, you don't have to be polite to me. You have helped our Green family so much. This small matter is nothing."
"Hey, why did you call me Mr. Johnson again?" Mark chided. "Didn't I say it sounded weird? Just call me Mark."
"I'm afraid it's disrespectful to call me by your first name. How about this? You're a little older than me. I'll call you Brother Mark from now on. Is that okay?"
Mark chuckled softly to himself. "That's fine," Marcy said.
"Brother Mark, as soon as we finish this call, I will get our people onto the packaging and then get the fairy toner on the shelves as soon as possible. It should be on sale in 2 or 3 days. I will call you when the time comes."
Okay. After hanging up the phone, Mark walked briskly to his house. Marcy was very busy. She asked the manufacturer under her banner to prepare the packaging. The name was Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner, which was then mass-produced. Because she did not know how well it would sell, she only produced a small amount at the beginning. The few herbs used to produce the fairy toner were actually randomly picked by Mark, because the thing that had an actual effect was not the herbs, but the spiritual energy within Mark's body. So during the production process, Mark went to the production workshop and took the opportunity to add all the spiritual energy in his body to the new batch of fairy toner. This way, the fairy toner Marcy's people produced would have the same effect as the samples Mark had made. The next day, Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner was all ready for sale in various cosmetics stores, supermarkets, and shopping centers under the Green family. After lunch, Kelly and a few of her classmates went to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. Kelly saw the beautifully packaged fairy toner on a cosmetics shelf. Her eyes immediately lit up because of the words fairy toner. The fairy toner that Mark gave her before had a very good effect. The fairy toner in front of her was in a purple bottle. There was even a small purple diamond on top of the bottle, which was very elegant. Furthermore, this bottle was in the shape of a heart. It was very unique and eye-catching. It could be noticed at a glance. Kelly reached out and took the fairy toner in her hand. She carefully looked at it. She muttered, "The packaging of this fairy toner is so exquisite. I wonder how it will work. Could it be like the fairy toner that Mark gave me? Will it make my skin become soft and clear all of a sudden?" Then, Kelly read the name on the fairy toner. Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner? She had never heard of this brand before. The name was so different. It seemed to be a new product. "Wait a minute," Kelly muttered to herself. "Why do I feel that this name is so familiar? Nick Beauty is similar to my sister's name. This fairy toner is not something that my sister's company produces, is it? Could it be that Mark's fairy toner is being sold by my sister's company? It shouldn't be out so fast, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to try it because of the beautiful bottle." Kelly looked at the price of the fairy toner, and it was not expensive, so she immediately decided to buy it. After buying it, she went back to her dorm at LAU and quickly washed her face. Then she waited eagerly to see if the effects of this fairy toner were anything like the effects of the fairy toner Mark had given her. Not long after she applied it, she found that her skin had become much softer than before. Kelly could not help but exclaim, "This fairy toner is exactly the same as the fairy toner that Mark made before. It can't really be the fairy toner that he made, right?" Kelly took out her phone and called Mark. Then she got Mark's affirmative answer.
"That's right. This Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner is the one I gave you to test out. It is now on sale."
"Really? It is really the fairy toner that you gave me? No wonder the effect is so good. So it's the same. I didn't expect it to be on sale so quickly. Is my sister's company the agent?" Kelly asked.
"No, your sister still doesn't believe in me, so I had to find another company to package and produce it. I'll sell this fairy toner on behalf of the company and see how effective it is first."
After hanging up the phone, Kelly said to her classmates,
"Hey, didn't you all want the fairy toner that my brother-in-law gave me? Now that I have it, it is this purple heart-shaped small bottle called Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner. It is already on sale in the stores. It is in the supermarket that we went to just now."
Kelly's friends were excited.
"Wow, is that true? Then we have to go and buy it, because we have tested it before. The effects of this fairy toner are too good."
So Kelly's classmates all rushed to the supermarket like a swarm of bees, and practically all the fairy toner on the shelves was sold out in a matter of minutes. News of the fairy toner spread like wildfire, and very soon, it spread throughout the entire LA University. The girls in the university all love beauty, so after hearing other people's excited discussions and sighs of praise, they also went to buy fairy toner, and after using it, They found that its effects were exceptionally good. It was faster and better than using any other cosmetics. So almost all the young women at LAU raced to the nearest supermarket to buy fairy toner. They cleaned the store out. And the same thing happened with other women all over the city. For example, one woman accidentally bought a purple heart-shaped bottle of the Nick Beauty Fairy Toner. After using it, the effect was surprisingly good. Her best friends and colleagues saw that her skin suddenly became clear and soft. They all asked her what was going on, so she recommended this fairy toner to her friends and best friends. Her friends also went to buy this fairy toner. After using it, they found that the effect was incredible, and then they recommended this fairy toner to the other friends around them. News of this new product spread like wildfire, and very soon, Nick Beauty Fairy Toner became super popular all over LA. In only 3 days, almost all the supermarkets and cosmetics stores in the city had sold out of Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner. This shocked Marcy. She made the factory under her name produce the first batch of Nick Beauty Grass Fairy Toner, and just like that, it sold out within 3 days. She originally wanted to organize some promotional and trial activities, but now she did not need to do anything. She only needed to rely on the word-of-mouth advertising that was happening naturally. Just that had made the fairy toner one of the most popular beauty products available. Marcy couldn't help but sigh to herself. Brother Mark was truly an awesome man. If his random cosmetic secret recipe could produce such incredible fairy toner, wouldn't a whole line of such products earn huge profits? 3 days later, Mark received a call from Marcy.
Brother Mark, good news. After pushing out Nick Beauty Fairy Toner, what do you think happened? In just 3 days, it swept across the entire city like a tornado. I originally wanted to organize a promotional event for it, but now it seems like nothing is needed. Just the reputation alone is enough to make Nick Beauty popular throughout the entire city. Maybe even the entire country.
Is that so? It's that popular so fast? Mark was a little surprised. He knew that the effect of this fairy toner was extremely good, and that sooner or later it would be explosive, but he didn't expect it to be this explosive in just 3 days.
Brother Mark, since the effect of the fairy toner is so good, we should consider building a whole cosmetic brand next. Then we should take the opportunity to introduce the other products of the Nick Beauty line, such as cleanser and skin cream, to make the whole line more desirable. Brother Mark, if you agree, I can immediately ask the cosmetics companies under the Green family to do these things.
Marcy paused for a moment and then continued excitedly.
After our line is released, we can hire a popular celebrity to endorse it. With that and the great word-of-mouth advertising combined, our brand will definitely become famous across the country and even internationally.
When Marcy finally paused for breath, Mark said carefully, Marcy, the matter of building our brand first. You need to slow down. Marcy cut Mark off.
What? Why wait? We should strike while the fairy toner is hot.
Mark felt awkward. He said as gently as he could, Actually, Marcy, about the fairy toner. It's like this. I'm just asking you to help me test it on the market and see the reactions of people. If it is good, I will give the distribution rights of this cosmetic brand to my wife, Nicole, and she will take full responsibility for it because this fairy toner was tailor-made for her company.
Oh, I see.
Marcy suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. After she'd worked so hard, Mark just wanted her to test the effects of the fairy toner and then pass the distribution of the cosmetic brand directly to his wife, Nicole. Marcy suddenly realized that she had worked really hard for a long time, but she had done it all for someone else. But in front of Mark, she did not dare to feel wronged. The Green family owed Mark too much. Putting aside everything else, Mark had helped them eliminate the Lamb family. Saving the Green family was enough for them to repay him for the rest of their lives. So Marcy quickly adjusted her mood and said on the other end of the phone,
All right, I understand.
Right, let's stay with this for now. If there is any need in the future, I will contact you again. After hanging up the phone, Mark's mouth tilted up in a smile. Nicole did not believe in him, but when she saw that the fairy toner was so popular, he was pretty sure she would. At this time, Nicole was sitting in her office when her phone suddenly rang. She picked up, and Kelly's voice came from the other side.
Nicole, that fairy toner is really hot. Did you see it in the stores?
Nicole was surprised. What fairy toner?
It is the fairy toner that Mark specially developed for your company. Don't you know about it? It's all over LA, all the supermarkets, cosmetic stores, and shopping malls. The fairy toner has sold out everywhere. Sis, now you see how magical this fairy toner is, so you shouldn't have rejected Mark.
Really? It's already that popular? You are not trying to fool me, are you? Nicole could not believe that the fairy toner that Mark developed had just been the result of soaking a few random herbs. Without any testing or trialing, it was good enough to become popular the minute it went up for sale. How could those large brands of cosmetics, which had gone through layers of testing and trial, compete?
I'm not lying to you.
Kelly insisted.
If you don't believe me, you can go out and ask around. You can just randomly find a woman on the street to ask about it. Right now, everyone knows about Nick Beauty Fairy Toner.
Nick Beauty Fairy Toner? Nicole repeated.
That's right. Look at the name. It's even named for you. That's how much Mark loves you. Sis, this fairy toner had just been put up for sale. The distribution rights and sales rights have not been settled yet. Hurry up and fight for it.
Kelly urged. Didn't the distribution rights go to the Green family? Didn't that good-for-nothing collaborate with Marcy Green? Nicole asked, a note of bitterness creeping into her voice when she said Marcy's name.
That's why you should hurry up and fight for it. No matter how awesome Marcy is, she is still an outsider, and Mark is your husband. He made it for you, but you didn't believe in it and rejected him, so he had no choice but to cooperate with Marcy. Now you see how good it is. What are you hesitating for? Hurry up and find Mark. Ask nicely, and he will definitely give the distribution rights of this fairy toner to your company.
Kelly paused for a moment and then continued.
Sis, your company is currently in a difficult situation. If you can make and sell a popular cosmetic brand, then not only will it save your company, but it might even make you rich. What a great opportunity. You're such a smart person. Don't miss this opportunity out of stubbornness.
All right, I'll think about it.
Don't miss this opportunity out of stubbornness.
All right, I'll think about it. Nicole hung up the phone and fell into deep thought. What fairy toner did Mark make? Was it really that magical? At that moment, the office door was pushed open, and Nicole's secretary and best friend, Anna, walked in. The moment Anna came in, she had a very excited look on her face. Nicole, do you know, a new fairy toner has suddenly become hugely popular in LA. Now everyone is talking about it. Everyone says that it works like magic. I didn't believe it when I heard about it, but everyone was so excited I decided I should try it myself. I went to the supermarket to buy a bottle and took it home for my own experiments, and guess what? Anna found it hard to hide her excitement. She waved her hand and said, This fairy toner is really like they said. It's magical. Look at my face. As Anna spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at her face. I only used it once. Just once. The skin on my face has become much better than before. It's just like the skin of a baby. It's as smooth as milk. It's so cool. It's really so cool. As Anna spoke excitedly, she suddenly clapped her hands. I never thought that this fairy toner would be so awesome. Moreover, it's so cheap. How much do you think it costs for a bottle? It's only a little over $100. What can $100 buy now? Not much, but you can buy a magical fairy toner. Who in this world wouldn't want their skin to look and feel this good? Everyone wants to look and feel great,
That's why this fairy toner is so hot.
Nicole said, I know. You're talking about that Nick Beauty fairy toner, right? Anna perked up even more when Nicole said the name of the fairy toner.
Oh, you already know about it? This fairy toner not only has a good name, but also has very exquisite packaging. It is purple, and the bottle is shaped like a heart. It's very attractive, Nicole. I've already made some inquiries. Although this fairy toner was first introduced and sold by the Green family, they didn't manage to get the final sales and dealership contract for it. They only tried to sell it first to see how it performed on the market. So we had to make the best use of our time and seize the dealership and sales rights immediately. Such a good product, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Nicole said, That's strange. That good-for-nothing doesn't even know how to develop cosmetics. Who would think that a random herbal formula would produce a fairy toner? Is it really that magical? It's hard to believe. When she heard this, Anna was surprised.
What did you say? You said that this fairy toner was made using a random herbal formula? What did you just say about a good-for-nothing?
Nicole said, You didn't realize? This fairy toner is the one that my husband gave me to test out.
What?
Hearing this, Anna rocked back on her heels.
Are you sure? You're saying that this fairy toner was in the test bottles that Mark gave you previously? What do you mean? You're not going to tell me that this incredible fairy toner was developed by your husband, are you?
Nicole helplessly nodded her head. That's right.
My God, I can't believe it. How is this possible?
Anna shook her head in amazement. Nicole nodded. Why else would this fairy toner be called the Nick Beauty Fairy Toner? Furthermore, it comes in a purple bottle. When Nicole said this, Anna came to a realization.
Oh my God, Nick Beauty? Of course, Nicole. Your name, packaged in a purple bottle? Purple is your favorite color, isn't it? Then your husband truly named this toner for you. Oh my God, this is unbelievable. That useless piece of trash of your family was actually able to develop this incredible fairy toner. He really developed a secret recipe for it, and he did it for you.
Nicole spread her hands and laughed bitterly. That's right. I did not expect him to actually succeed.
Then what are you waiting for?
Anna suddenly shouted and grabbed Nicole's arm.
I was thinking of going to talk to the developer of this fairy toner and trying to get the distribution rights. Now, there is no need to go through so much trouble. Just find that useless person in your family. Nicole, our company is saved now. There's no time to lose. Hurry up and find your husband. Don't let him give the distribution rights of this fairy toner to the Green family.
Nicole said, Why are you so agitated? Let go of me first. My hand is hurting because of you. Anna let go of Nicole's hand.
Of course, I'm excited. If we can get the sales and distribution rights of this fairy toner, do you know what it means? It means that our company can create a product from the Nick Beauty Grass series. There are not only deities. We will be able to create a series of products from the Nick Beauty Grass series. We will be able to create a big brand.
Nicole said, I know that, but you want me to beg that useless person? When he came to ask me previously, I completely rejected him. I even said that his fairy toner was trash. That's why he went to find the Green family when he got angry. Now you want me to go and say nice things to him and ask him to... I can't do it.
Ugh, is your ego more important or is our company's future more important? Besides, he's not a stranger, he's your husband. You should be able to talk to him about this.
Nicole said with some difficulty, Anna, you do not understand. We are not really husband and wife together. Actually, in the 5 years since he married into our family, other than my dad, our family's attitude towards him has been very bad. Sometimes even I can't help but ridicule him. I attacked him and looked down on him when he came to talk to me about the fairy toner before, so I am worried that he won't forgive me, because my family has always treated him like a loser. But now he used some kind of secret recipe to develop this fairy toner, and it's actually so popular. Such a big business opportunity. Such a good opportunity to earn money. He tried to give this opportunity to me, but If you don't try, you won't know. Nicole,
With your qualifications and strength, you must face him. You must settle this matter, Anna said firmly.
Nicole looked down at her hands. But his relationship with Marcy Green is complicated. Plus, the Green family has gotten ahead of us. I'm afraid.
What do you mean? Your husband's relationship with Marcy is complicated. Damn, your husband isn't cheating on you with her, is he?
Anna sighed.
Nicole, you are CEO Midler. How can you let a good-for-nothing cheat on you? It seems to me that this isn't so much about the fairy toner, but about the rivalry. That Marcy is your love rival, and you must not let your husband give her the right to distribute the fairy toner. Nicole, listen to me. Go and find your husband now. Do whatever you to make him listen to you. Don't say anything negative to him. Do whatever you need to do to make him want to give you the rights to Nick Beauty Fairy Toner. Beg him if you must, but get those rights.
Nicole was disappointed. She had always looked down on Mark and had always thought that he was a useless person with no future. But now, she really wanted to beg Mark and even throw herself into his arms. What was wrong with her? For the sake of the company's future, Nicole finally decided to fight for the right to represent and sell the fairy toner from Mark. Mark was her husband, so in the eyes of outsiders, with just a word from her, he would definitely give her the right to distribute and sell the fairy toner. But she knew in her heart that she and Mark were not really husband and wife. All these years, her family members and herself had a bad attitude towards him. She was afraid that he would hold a grudge against her because of that, and would not give her the right to sell and distribute the amazing product. As for Nicole, as a strong woman and a person with high self-esteem, she would never lower herself by begging Mark for the rights. During dinner, Nicole had been observing Mark's expression. She was having second thoughts and wondering if it would be best if she did actually ask Mark to hand over the sales rights and distribution rights of the fairy toner to her. But if Mark bore a grudge against her, it would not be easy. Fortunately, Mark was just the same as always. As he ate, he kept encouraging her to eat. Nicole, eat more of this spinach. It's full of iron, and this broccoli is great for your skin. I made it especially for you. Only then did Nicole relax slightly. Tia saw Mark getting food for her daughter. She looked at Mark with contempt. Weak person, what are you trying to do? Don't think that just because you are attentive, my daughter will fall in love with you. Mark pretended not to hear her. He lowered his head and continued eating. Timothy knocked on the table and said, Nicole, Mark, you two are not young anymore. You have been married for so long. Shouldn't you hurry up and have a child? When you have a child, your mother and I will finally have a grandchild. When she heard this, Nicole's face flushed red. Dad, what are you talking about? Mark felt a little awkward. He was thinking about what kind of child he would father. He had not even held his wife's hand more than a few times. Even now, 5 years after their wedding, he was still sleeping on the floor.